Okay, so let me start over for the recording. This session will be mostly for your interview tips and how do you ace interviews, because whatsoever we have been doing so far was will be majorly your role when you get into your jobs as Hadoop administrator. And but before reaching that, you have to ace interviews, and we'll be discussing certain tips. So before we jump into that, if you have any problems, you can just come up right now, so that at the end we will discuss those tips, and then we can sum up. So anybody still facing some issues? I think this one of the Ratan was facing one of the issues, and great job. So I didn't thought that you might end up creating that same troubleshooting that same cluster. So that's a good thing, you figured out your issues. And apart from that, anybody else who wants to discuss anything, any troubleshooting, anything you want to do? Because this mostly will be so this floor is like for you if you want to discuss anything, and we'll end up with the interview tips. Okay, so I don't think anybody has any issues. All right.
I wanted to ask something about Spark.
Mhm.
If you remember, I asked you like how the job, the task is divided. I never get to find it online. I tried. Is there any way you have like because in previous in some events I got questions like that and I didn't know how to answer that, so that's why I was asking if you can tell me.
Okay, so if you can frame that question, what is
So
that?
you know how us when wait one second. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now I can.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened is like when I was interviewing for as a developer for Hadoop, I got a question asked, when you submit a Spark job, how do you think the job is getting divided into tasks? And I never find out the answer for that. So I was just asking if there's any explanation how it gets divided into tasks.
Okay, so uh, this is probably a developer's question. Point like it's on the point of view how your data is being split into various tasks, and since mostly they have Yarn as the as the container management at the backend for Spark, so it divides upon the input splits. So let's say you have uh, 128 megabytes is your block size, right? And correspondingly, you want to analyze your code over, let's say, 1280 megabytes of data. So you will correspondingly have uh, 10 blocks, right? 10 blocks of data that needs to be worked upon. And similarly, uh, your Spark job will, so your yarn will decide upon the number of splits will be corresponding to the number of mappers if it had been a Spark job. But Spark also follows the same approach. Instead of that, it uses the in-memory computation, but exactly it's not that equivalent to how MapReduce works. So to give you the right answer, let me figure out. Right, no batteries. All right. So in here, the number of executors and the number of like the memory consumed by each executor, you can definitely pass it through the shell. But what we are looking for is how this executors within itself, like this, dividing into various subtasks that we were, I think, looking at also in one of the classes. So as like he's also saying, Spark reads from HDFS, and the number of partitions will be determined by the number of input splits. So this phenomena works as it is how it works in your MapReduce job. So in MapReduce job, what happens is the number of mappers depends upon the number of blocks, the number of input splits that you have for your data. Now has been like replaced. So in MapReduce, those were like using the disks for writing the intermediate data. But in here, when you talk of Spark, although the splitting algorithm is same, but instead of storing it on local directory, it's basically storing it into the RAM. Input splits are determined by the input format we are using. Your text format is by default. So, like a very short and crisp answer to him would be that okay, the number of executors you can give depending upon your job run scenario. So there's like two properties through which you can set the number of executors and what will be the memory consumed by that. But within those, each executor, how the tasks are being configured, it totally depends upon the number of input splits that your job will be like fed to, or it depends upon the what amount of data you want to run your job on. Okay, but yeah, I think it can be asked in your administrator question because it's part of infrastructure question as well. So yes, so that's also a part of the interview tip, because most of the time people are like looking for people who are skilled in Spark when it comes to development. Okay, development these days, when it comes to Hadoop, everybody is looking for someone who is skilled in Spark, because you should be fluent in writing codes which are on Scala and that uses Spark framework to interact with the Hadoop infrastructure. But yes, from the administrator point of view, this type of question can be asked. So it's worth a read about the Spark architecture and how it divides. Okay.
Thank you.
There's just a small short question
Mhm.
I need to ask.
Mhm.
That when I was doing a making directory when I was in the HDFS,
Mhm.
trying to make dir command, then it says permission denied. Is that because HDFS don't allow?
No, so it depends. So that can be a question. Okay, so let's say my client is having issue with creation of directory, he's getting permission denied. Anybody else in this class can help him out? How would you help him? This can be an interview question also. Okay, Sarah, Samia, can you give it a try?
I thought it has to be HDFS to do any kind of making directory in a HDFS.
Okay, let's say that is sorted out. So what is the other than that one need to check? So as an admin, what should I check?
If
Or
you are the root,
Mhm. So each person will have his own user ID. Okay. So each of my client will be given a user ID. Let's say, whose question was this? Fahim, your question?
Yeah, Fahim.
Okay, so let's say Fahim is given his ID as FHIM. Okay, so he logs in into that server with his ID. Now he cannot be root. I've not given him root permissions. I also haven't given him the HDFS users permission. So he cannot do a sudo to HDFS or root. He just need to use his own ID. So how as an admin will I configure that he gets to make into a particular directory? What are the administrator like security commands in HDFS?
It was grant permission.
You remember this command? Get FACL, set FACL. Okay, so these are ACLs. If you would go over that topic when we discuss the like HDFS topics. So in there, I told you that doing a normal HDFS DFS hyphen ls will give over a directory. Let's say this is the directory that he wants to create. Let's say user hive or user HDFS is the directory. Okay, so definitely since it's the HDFS directory, the owner will be HDFS. The group can be Hadoop, while others won't have any permission to create. So other won't have the permission to write. Others, let's say the others is the group that Fahim falls into. Okay, and he has the others is not given permission. So definitely the HDFS user will have permission to read, write, and execute. Hadoop might have to read and execute. He might not be having the permission to write, and others can only read probably, or even that like a more severe permission would be that no permission for others to do anything in this HDFS directory. In this case, you can set ACLs. So apart from owner, group, and others, you can give other people also. Apart from these three, you can give other groups, other people also permission. So in this case, what I'll do, let's say Fahim was also not part of others group. Okay, so he was completely separate person in this scenario who wanted to create a directory in HDFS, and he was getting permission denied. So what I will do is I just set FACL. M is for modify. The complete syntax you can get from, I might be messing up a certain point in here, but something like hyphen M is for modify, hyphen R is for remove, hyphen U stand for since we are going to give permission to a user. Otherwise, if you want to give permissions to any other group, you can give hyphen G. So in this case, I will give hyphen U, then I will give Fahim's ID. I will say, okay, give him read, write, and execute permission, and I will give him path of that directory. Okay, so for him, probably the case with you would be that either that's right though you can easily make your directory if you become root or if you become HDFS because these two are super users. The reason that the people were able to create everything with these two, and I also showed that because these two are the super users when it comes to HDFS related any file folder something. Okay, but apart from that, if you want to do, if in a production environment, you won't be giving these kind of permissions to your clients. Even you might not have these kind of permissions. Some companies don't give pseudo users permissions. So in that case, you will have to set up something like this ACLs. Okay, so try it. So give it a try. Don't use these two. That's a good scenario. Try to make a user of yourself. So the command Linux command to create users. So these kind of like I had opened up this shell scripting notes because I wanted to share that sometimes they tend to ask not in development scenarios. So if somebody is giving into the Hadoop development interviews, they will be more interested in Spark and things like this. How do you create an RDD? How do you specify the number of partitions? So in here, probably that your guy was wanted to hear something about code. So how would you write that into a coding scenario to control the number of partitions? In a normal case, when you're not specifying this property, this totally depends upon the input splits. But probably I think this is a like coding scenario wherein you give this property and you can control the number of partitions as well. So these kind of things will be more interested to a developer. For us as an admin, if I'm taking an interview for you, I will be more interested into your Linux capabilities, your ACL's capabilities, and your troubleshooting capabilities as well. So they tend to ask you general Linux questions like this. So how will you determine the number of uh, variables that are passed to a script? So these are like certain kind of special variables that you say dollar 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 and star. I think I also discussed it in that shell scripting, one shell scripting curl that we have. So these kind of questions they tend to ask. So Swahim, user add, you just create a user for yourself. Okay. After that, to change a password for your user ID, you can use command passwd followed by your user ID. He will ask you for a password. Once you change that, then do something like su hyphen Fahim. He will again like you want to switch using the su permissions. I'm not using sudo in this case. Okay, so thinking of a fact that I don't have a sudo privilege available. So you want to do a su and hyphen this, and after that you can you will be becoming Fahim, and then so before that you have to be HDFS and do this ACL setting. And after that, when you become Fahim, you try to create your own directory and you will be able to do that. Okay.
All right, we'll try.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else who tend to who happen to give any interviews in the past, and you might share any questions that you think are like being asked. Okay. So as I was saying, generally the scenario in any like any interview that they tend to take in current market situations. I don't know like how it would be after this COVID scenarios, but what was general criteria was it tend to have multiple rounds that can be telephonic or face to face. And when I say about multiple rounds, so this refers to your technical rounds, and that also depends upon your years of experience. And after that, you might have something called as an HR or a managerial round that tends to look into your soft skills. And so these are like depending upon each organization how they classify their resources. So yeah, but definitely this also is an important aspect. And although we cannot do anything specific for it, but just uh, follow certain rules that are available on the internet. Read about that company that you are going to interview for. Okay, so quickly discussing about something about this. So you must read about your organization, and when I say read about, give it like a Wikipedia search over that, and you can like should know about their CEO, their business that they are into, their current market situation, or probably like read about um, if you can go over their financial statements of like financial yeah, we could call it statements of quarters of previous quarters and all. Okay, so that would give an impression that okay, you for not only the technical aspects, you are also qualified to understand the financial and the other aspects of your organization that you are applying to. But yes, in our scenario, like in the field that you are going to apply, mostly people will be interested in your technical skills. But yes, there are the like bigger multinational companies tend to give these things also importance. So we don't want to mess up onto it. And HR will be about your like your background and how do you. So this was about managerial. Okay, so how do you, what are your managerial skills and everything. HR will be about your personal goals, family and stuff. So they want to understand how you are classified. So just be true to yourself, like yourself. Don't try to uh, do anything that that would give a bad impression. Just be true to yourself. That would do the trick in this particular case. Okay, now coming to our technical aspects. Even this guy can ask you your little background about your professional life. Okay, so he can to answer such questions. Okay, let's say I ask you this question. Give me a brief introduction about your professional achievements and your experience, and let's see how Ishaq can answer that. Ishaq,
Yes, what?
give me a little introduction about your professional life up till now. Let's say you applied to me for a job. How would you describe yourself? And you have to be specific into your professional life.
I mean, do I give the real one or the makeup one
Anything you feel,
right now?
anything you feel like. So I just want to understand how you come up to answering such questions.
Okay. So I've been in the field for like more than 5 years, and I'm I worked as an Hadoop admin
Mhm.
over Facebook, and I handle lots of difficult situation over there, and all of them I uh, overcame
Mm.
with my my ability to understand overall the uh, the knowledge that I had.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so sometimes okay, so thank you, Ishaq, for that. Now Ishaq said that he faced many difficult situations. So for me, this is the real thing I wanted to hear from him. Then the next question would be, describe anyone difficult situation into your role as admin. And what I am looking for is your troubleshooting skills. Okay, so probably you will have to explain me a troubleshooting scenario and how did you handle that. You can explain more than one, but this is something that most of the time they will ask you in your interview, because as I told you, they are looking for your Linux abilities. So in this case, they can ask you about basic Linux questions to advanced scripting one. If you specify your scripting as a skill that you have, and I would say that okay, always specify that, because that gives you brownie points. It may happen that in some interviews you might end up not answering every question, but keep on learning about it. Keep on reading Linux and everything, because it's a very important skill as an administrator and even as a developer, I think, because developers also these days tends to work a little bit on Linux. So Linux is like the major role they all look up to. Then, as an admin comes your Hadoop knowledge. So that is also important. And finally, they are looking for your troubleshooting experience as well as skill. So experience is important because, and this whole curriculum that we followed, we tend to had many troubleshooting scenarios. So you already have this as an experience, and it keeps on adding up. So as your cluster will grow old, you will see even more kind of issues. If you want to stay, get that cluster keep up and running, it tends to, and you tend to store more data. So there will be various other kind of troubleshooting experiences, and then how do you classify that? So this is probably the most important thing I would say they all are looking into, because okay, Hadoop knowledge and everything, Linux abilities is like also a kind of thing that can be read and developed. But how do you troubleshoot any scenario? That's something related to your analytical abilities. Okay, so okay, Ratan, describe one good troubleshooting thing that you faced and how did you solve that?
So what about if I talk about that one I faced last time?
Yeah, anyone. Just give me a crisp explanation of your problem so that I can understand. After that, how do you exactly solve that?
So okay, so once I had a problem with my Spark, which I couldn't connect to the Spark,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to what can I say? I had to delete some file from my name node,
Mm-hmm.
the directory.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to create one.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
I guess like
Okay. So whenever you try to, so I think you faced a very good scenario, troubleshooting scenario, Ratan, but you have to specify that in terms of not just your troubleshooting, but also specify your Hadoop knowledge in there. So you can say that okay, my Spark was stuck and I was facing issue because my name node was in safe mode, right? Because all of this tends to show your Hadoop knowledge as well. So that shows that okay, you know about the concept of safe node. I happen to check my FS image directories, and I figured out that the FS image and the edit logs. Correct me if I'm wrong. If this is not the right way you approach that you followed. And I figured out that my FS image and my edits files were pretty old, and that led to uh, a lot of time for name nodes to compute the state, and that led to my issue. Now this is your problem statement. Now next, what you did to for like solve it? Describe me that, Ratan. Describe me how did you solve that problem? So in the problem statement, you can see, right, you have described not just the problem but also your Hadoop knowledge. So you will get like within that 45 minutes you'll have to impress your interviewer. So you always take every opportunity as not just tend to show all of these three skills into that. Okay, now describe me how did you solve that problem?
um,
Just go ahead. Don't think too much. Like whatever you did, just keep on saying that.
so all I did was so I had to make a new file.
Hmm. What was that file? Everything that you say, just describe in terms of Hadoop as well. Which was that file?
The name as said from DFS, the name node file.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just a little confused.
Okay, no problem. So just compute that. How did you solve that? Write down some bulleted points that that tends to involve your Hadoop knowledge and skills as well. Okay, and you can just figure that out. Okay, let me ask this question. So, apart from this problem, I would like to hear some other troubleshooting case that you get into while in this course, and that's why I told you keep on writing those problems and keep on writing whatever you did to solve that. Okay, keep on writing the Hadoop jargons in there as well. So, because that would be helpful while you are describing it in your interviews. Okay, Sarah, can you explain me one troubleshooting scenario that you faced and how did you solve that?
Yeah, so I had a scenario where my Hive was not, I could not log on to Hive,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept getting like the same error over and over. So we checked HDFS UI,
Mm-hmm.
and we found that both of the name node, like both of them were on standby, both of the name nodes,
Okay.
the active and standby, they were both on standby.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried restarting and that didn't work. So then we decided to check Zookeeper,
Mm-hmm.
and we found that the failover controller was not working.
Okay.
It was turned off, it wouldn't turn on. And so we actually found that there was a directory
Okay.
that we had to format. It was the ZKFC. We had to format that directory, I believe it was, to be able to run the failover controller.
Okay. So I think
So that, and once
yeah, that's a good explanation. So, and that's a very good troubleshooting case to discuss. Having two standby name nodes, you might end up in an interview wherein they throw up this question to you even without asking a troubleshooting scenario. They might throw up, okay, you see two name nodes are in standby. How would you solve that? So that's a very right approach. Go to the Zookeeper, first of all check instead of going to Zookeeper. I think first thing we should check is your failover controller, and if that's working fine, probably check the Zookeeper, and everything is working fine, probably that's the right way to first format your Zookeeper directories and to solve that. So this is a very good way. I think Sarah has explained it well. Okay. uh, Now this is something that will be like the pie of the question of all the questions that would be asked from you. At the end, probably they might ask you about your any troubleshooting experience, and that might make a good impact of your experience as an admin. Now, when it comes to Hadoop knowledge, just be thorough with at least 5 to 10 right before the interview. Okay, just search for, let's say, Hadoop administrator interview questions. So whatever pages come up, sometimes what happens is like not with the really good brands out there. So when you talk of Facebook or okay, Facebook is using, I think, Cassandra as well as Spark as well, and let's say some other like Uber and everything. These big brands, Apple, they tend to look for something more. There, people are really well qualified as well to ask you very intricate questions. But when it comes to normal brands, and I would say decent brands out there, for which you are interviewing to. So people there don't have that much time to keep on reading about the theoretical stuff. So they might it might happen that somebody is working right now and his manager comes up and says, okay, you have to take an interview within the next 10 to 20 minutes uh, for any of the candidates, and you might be that candidate. So what would happen in that scenario is that person would open up, just type something like administrator, Hadoop administrator interview questions, and whatever page comes up in front of him at that particular case, let's say top 50 Hadoop interview question. Okay, this look good to me. So I will be sitting in front of you with my laptop, and I would be opening up this page and directly asking you these questions. So make it a point just before an interview, at least try to scroll it over. Uh, let's say let's say this particular one page at least. When you type Hadoop interview questions, Hadoop administrator interview questions, whatever pages come up, just give it a scroll. Take a look of what kind of questions can be asked. Okay, so let's say if this is a question, and just try to think upon the answers in your mind. Just try to frame that answer in your mind. Don't just quickly go and read the answer. frame the answer within your mind. How, if somebody would throw up this question to you, how would you uh, answer that, and then compare it with the one that is written on. I think that's something that we all should always follow, and I think you would be following that too. But the point is here is that it might be that that interviewer would just throw up any of these random questions to you, and he might be looking for something related to what is written on that page. Because yes, that's the point. People with experience do forget theoretical scenarios and explanations, although they know how the things works practically. So they will come up to this page as a help, and they will ask you direct questions. So make it a point to read uh, at least first page of the Google search that comes up, and try to see for random questions. So let's say how many. So let's say if I throw a question to you. Okay, this is a very basic question. How do you think is HDFS fault tolerant, and how do you classify it as a fault tolerant? Anybody would like to answer it? Samia, would you want to give it a try? How is HDFS fault tolerant?
It's fault tolerant because HDFS have name. If it's in HA mode, it has two name nodes, one active and one standby. If any reason you lose the data, always standby has the information, and you can just anytime make another name node while the standby has the information going on. You can just make another service, add it to it. If it's corrupted, if it's not corrupted, you can just try to restart and see if it's working, and then the both thing can work together. That's one way. Give me one.
Okay.
And then that's one fault tolerant. And in general,
Okay, let's Nikhil answer that. Nikhil, apart from that, how do you think HDFS is fault tolerant? From what you have read so far.
So fault tolerance, that means we can come over from the fault tolerance with the replication factor, no?
Right, absolutely. So just give a little explanation of that too. How with the replication make your system fault tolerant?
So if we make a cluster with the rack, so the rack is always so name node and data node. So if one name node is one data node is full, we can make the replication from three replication by default. So if the one name node is full, the other one is we can take over from the other for the
Okay,
replication.
So I think you are mixing up these two things, Nikhil. You started
Name
off.
node and data.
Yes,
Name node and data.
right. You started off well, so that's right. That apart from name nodes, HA mode, you tend to have three replication, and what happens is, if let's say two data nodes are down and only one is up, so you can have at least one of your replica on that running data node, and you can still be able to fetch that file. So don't put in name node concepts in this case. Okay, this is a data node fault tolerance concept that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yes, that's right. Okay.
in this case, is that the rec awareness comes in, like where the two of the replications are saved in the same rack and the other one is saved on the other one?
Yes. So not just that, rack awareness is also an added fault tolerant phenomena to the same data node replication thing. Okay, so you can add it up to that. Okay, so let's say you have a three replication and you also have rack awareness. So that would ensure that if one of my data center is down, or let's say one of my rack is down, I still tend to have one of the data nodes on another rack that's running fine. Okay, so that's like an added approach to the data node fault tolerance. And yes, if you know about it, you should always tell about that. Okay, and some of the questions like will be about architecture, which I always try to discuss the architecture first about every service. So they might end up asking you about how describe the HDFS architecture and how does name node contact with data node. So you in this case you will have to describe about the block report, the heartbeats and all those things. So when it comes to Hadoop applications, uh, the decent clients or the like many people would end up opening up interview questions page and might ask you questions from this only. So try to uh, at least give it a read over all these questions that you see on the first page. Okay.
Sahil, what kind of Hive question we gonna be asked? Do you have any idea, like for an admin?
Okay, so he might ask you about Hive server, how Beeline is different from normal Hive shell, and he might ask you uh, uh, how do you recover a Hive, let's say external table? How do you recover it? Differences between external and internal tables. So that only so that you understand the directory locations, and if somebody tends to end up using a particular table, how do you recover that? Your recovering scenario, because that is something that falls into your zone. Okay, and architecture. So you must know about the Hive Metastore. You must know about Hive server, how they interact. You must understand about Hive server HA. So how you can make the Hive server HA. So I think that is I think we discussed that too. I'm not sure. So there is a certain other HA proxy kind of thing that you need to set up. So to ensure a Hive server, I think I have that written in some place. So scenarios like that, okay, related to your architecture of Hive and some knowledge about the tables and their metadata. And when I say architecture, you should know that okay, Hive we have a backend DB that connects to the Hive Metastore. Hive Metastore tends to store the metadata information in that DB, while the actual data is basically your HDFS files only, and Beeline is like an interface, like a gateway to the Hive Metastore that ensures that you can have a intermediate connection to the Hive Metastore, not a direct connection like you have with a normal Hive shell. So, and I don't think they would ask you about joins. If you're going for developer point of view, they might ask you Hadoop joins, sorry, Hive joins, table joins, and so there are something like left outer join, and I think right outer joins. Then you have inner joins. So all of this that falls into your developers point of view. And from the admins, I think that's sufficient enough. Just try to go more into the architecture of how Hive works. So if let me open up, there's a lot of like a lot of information related to that.
What happens if we do the Hive highly available? Because I think we kind of missed that.
Okay, so Hive HA is nothing but you have multiple Hive servers. Okay, and what happens is instead of just what you can do is you can give separate Hive servers. So let's say you have multiple Hive servers, okay, server 1, server 2, server 3. You can give these separate servers to your clients, and any of them can connect to any of it. And what instead you can do is you can set up something like an HA proxy. So that is high availability proxy server. What happens is when you have an HA proxy at the back end, the HA proxy will decide which one of the Hive server will we choose. But to your clients, you will always be given a same name. So let's say I had three HAs. I had three Hive servers: server A, server B, server C, and I had five clients. Okay, so what I did was I gave SA to client 1, 2, SB to client 3, SC to client 4, 5. Okay, so this is a non-HA proxy, high available Hive server environment. But let's say I just wanted to give one single name instead of giving SA to 1, 2. I just wanted to give a single common name. Let's say that, let's call it as a common, or as a common server name. So now this time I would give this common name to all of my 5 clients. And but what will happen at the back end is that this common name will toggle between the any of these 3 servers, and depending upon which one of them is up and running at the particular moment, he will return that server to my client. So that would ensure that my Hive servers are always available to all of my clients. Because even in this case, what would happen if I have given SA to 1 and 2, if SA goes down, my 1 and 2 clients still don't have any other options, but my 3, 4, 5 might still be working fine because SB and SC are up. So that is a non-HA proxy, but yes, multiple Hive server environment. But with HA proxy, you tend to set up a common name. And how to do that? I have that available, I think, in the drive also. Let me show. MSCK repair can be asked. You can be asked about Impala, how Impala helps to make queries faster. You can be asked about the Impala's metadata. So whatever stuff we discussed so far, just go as much intricate as you can go into the architecture and how exactly the things are working. So that would be enough. And yes, read little bit about the tables and how they are created, how they are managed, what are external table, what are managed table, and what are partitions in the table, what are bucketing, how does it helps you to search query faster. I think this is all the big things we discussed. Uh, and just get to try to get more information about that too. Let me show you where I have.
You also explained something about every block and file is an object which will take around 150 bytes of memory of a name node,
Right.
and every 1 million objects increases the RAM name node RAM by 1 GB. Can you
Absolutely.
explain
That's
that a
about
little bit?
HDFS. So that's about HDFS, and that's also about the HDFS name node capability. So what happens is every file, directory, or object and that you make that you send to store into your HDFS will be considered as an object, and each object that name node has to manage, he has to allocate 150 kilobytes of space in his RAM. Okay, and
Kilobytes or just bytes?
I think kilobytes. Not sure. I think it will be bytes. Let me check.
Okay, because I think I wrote it wrong.
No,
I
it could
wrote
be
only
bytes.
bytes.
I think bytes seems to be a little more logical. Name nodes, object, memory. Yeah, it's bytes. You're right. So for each object, it tends to store 150 bytes, and yes, so each file will be considering to have like 3 blocks, and that would be considered as 3 separate objects. So around 600 bytes per block per file. So in this case, he's considering like 3 blocks because you have a replication of 3. So let's say there's a 1 byte file. No, that's not what byte file. Yeah, even a 1 byte file. So that comes into a scenario of small files. That is also a good thing that people are asking these days, known as small files scenario. So what happens is, let's say I have a cluster which is which is storing very files which are very small, let's say in bytes. So let's say there's a 1 byte file, okay, and so that definitely will be converted into 3 blocks, and which a 1 byte of disk space. So this 1 byte file will be stored on the disk into 3 blocks, right? And will end up having 600 bytes of my RAM, of my name node RAM. So this is a very bad scenario I would say my cluster is into, wherein this storage is very less, while the corresponding overhead of managing that file is very high. This comes into the concept of small file scenarios. Now, there are various ways to handle it, but how we handled it in one of my companies that I work for is, I figured out from the FS image all such files which were coming out to be small. We figured out the source of those files, so that was basically from the daily Hadoop job that we tend to run at night to bring in all those bring in certain data of the client to the clusters, and some of the jobs in there were creating such files which were very small. It could be 1 byte, it could be anything that is less than the minimum block size of 128 megabytes. Okay, so anything that is less than this will be considered as a small file. And why is it considered as a very drastic scenario? Because they all tend to occupy this much of name node RAM. Now, what happens is, for each 1 million such objects, so anything will be considering as a 600, but will be taking a 600 bytes of name node RAM, whether it's a 1 byte file, whether it's a 128 megabyte file. If anything that goes beyond 128, definitely you will have to consider it as two objects. Okay, so anything that is less than or equal to the default block size, any file will be considered as a object that will end up taking 600 bytes. And this is something that I'm thinking of in a scenario when I have a 3 replication. Definitely, if you keep on decreasing the replication, it tends to be one for each replication. You have 150 kilobytes, sorry, 150 bytes of RAM. And if this of the objects tends to reach more than 1 million, so for 1 million, 1 GB is enough. For every million increase of objects, I guess for that's right, 1 GB of RAM will be need to increase. So, and what will happen if you don't increase it? So, same case of slowness, same case of if your cluster might end up into standby mode for all the time, because it is still waiting for the objects to release a certain RAM, or your read and write might become slow. You end up having various exceptions or warnings into the logs that would tend to slow the actual working of the name node. So it's recommended to increase for each million object at least 1 GB. And then I think 1,600,000 bytes you can multiply, and you would end up coming up to this number of RAM only. So that was that scenario we were discussing. Okay, where was I for that?
Sahil,
Yeah.
what's the mostly uses Linux command in Hadoop administrator troubleshooting?
Okay, so for troubleshooting, so these are like basics. You can have your grep to grep certain errors or certain thing that you want to check over a file. Then there comes tail, head, awk. Awk is to filter out. Awk and sed, all of these are filter outing. Then you have sed, uh, although these are mostly into, awk can be probably used in troubleshooting, but sed is for Linux scripting. And troubleshooting. Okay, then there comes Hadoop command. So you have HDFS, DFS admin, and the corresponding options of, like, let's say report, and you have Hadoop FS, not FSCL, Hadoop. What is it? Command for FS image. I don't. I'm forgetting the command for FS image. Anybody remembers that?
FSCK.
Right, Hadoop FSCK. Either Hadoop or HDFS FSCK hyphen files hyphen blocks hyphen locations. This is the right one, right? So through this you can figure out your FS image, where are the files, where the block store, or if there are any inconsistencies in your HDFS. Then it comes to your HBase. So you have HBase, HBCK, similar to FSCK. So it will give you a HBase information. You have options like to correct. I think what was that? I think delete is to delete any missing, as any inconsistent block. There is one more option for using HBase and HBCK. I don't remember that right now. Okay, and
Sahil, what is the JPS command for stand for? That's for troubleshooting.
HBCK, it will tell you your if your table is okay, if your table is inconsistent, your HBase tables. So if they are
HBase table.
yeah. So there might be inconsistency. There might be some regions inconsistencies. There might be some region missing. Okay, so to figure out all those stuff, you will always use your HBase, HBCK. And yes, this thing will basically for your analyzing your log files. Okay? So most of the time you will end up figuring out issues from the log files. Always look for error exceptions.
Are they going to ask you like any kind of command to just like give you permission or location or anything?
Yes, they might. So like how the way I used to ask you, they might also ask you, because it although not directly, but as a part of scenario, because I think every one of you would be when you will be giving interviews, you will be showing your experience around 4 or 5 years or more than that, right? Nobody will be showing an initial experienced person. So for person who's experienced enough, questions will be more into the architecture, more into scenarios, and yes, within the scenarios, somebody can jump in and ask, okay, I'm forgetting that command. Can you please help me with that? So you must know that command at that point. Okay, and somebody would say, okay, how do we figure out those FSMs? How do we figure out the HBase region information? So you must have those commands handy. So that will show your experience of working on that. Okay, I was talking about Hive, I think. So these are like very basic architecture. What I am looking for is Apache's design.
I have a question. It's not related to what we're discussing right now.
Hmm.
How long will you be keeping those recordings? How long will you keep those recordings in your drive?
Okay. So even if I would have to delete those, probably I would shift them to YouTube or some other platform. Okay, so doesn't I
Yeah,
don't
YouTube
worry.
would be great.
So I would be making them as private. So if you would have that link, then only you would be able to open that. If you would share them to others, then they might end up opening it. But yes, but apart from video, I'm thinking from some other options too that are more private. So you don't worry about that. Even if I would have to
Okay.
delete them, I would intimate, and I still don't have all of those videos on my local disk. So you won't miss out on any of this. But you might you can just download them. I think from Drive you would be having that option to download that onto your own local computers. But yes, I will also ensure that you have access to them. Okay. Don't worry about that. Okay, something like this, I think it includes everything that how probably Hive works. And this is the part to the left. Okay, so you have an execution engine, you have a driver, you have a compiler. These three are parts of your Hive metastore. Like these, all of this is part of your Hive metastore. UI is a separate thing. Okay, so I think this page might describe even more about the architecture, metastore architecture. If you want to read about it, compiler. What does a compiler do? This is a very good page. Okay, tend to see pages that.
Yeah, can you please share this page,
Yes,
Sahil? This page, I really find it nice.
I'm just pinging it to any like on this group chat. And also let me tell you, while you are working, you are confused about any of the properties. Always look for something like, let's say if you're confused about a Hadoop property. So you have Hadoop default dot XML from Apache. I think this is a Jira issue. Any issues that you see, okay, you are not able to solve, try to look for something like this Jira. This tends to this website is for global community of Hadoop that tends to face some bugs. Sometimes what happens is you end up on a bug that doesn't have any solution at the particular time. So look for things like Jira's. Jira is like a global tool that is hosted by Apache, wherein developers can log in their bugs and everything. This bugs right now is closed, as you can see. You might end up seeing bugs that are open, so that show that there is no solution for such scenarios. I like ended up opening this page, but I was intended to show you about Hadoop default. Okay, let's just type Hadoop default. So what I am trying to show you that every file has a default page which you can just come up and okay, I think this is for Hadoop Yarn. This is for you can just come up on that page and you can check your properties information. I think this is for MapRed default. Yes, this is a MapRed default XML. What you see, so you can see every property that relates to MapReduce and its description to the left, to the right is available. So if you're confused in any property, just try to look for Hadoop Apache or Apache's page and try to see something for it to have a MapRed. So for in this case, for MapRed. Similarly, I can find for Yarn defaults.
So Sahil, this is the last class, right?
Yes, most probably. Let's see what. So I would discuss like depending upon if you would need any more support classes. I can come up.
So that means today is our learning session last class.
Yes, every
And the
session.
next class is
This is probably your last class for the course.
next will be mock test, right?
Right. So that particular thing would be, I think I will leave it to Tasin and Opu, how they would see. So yes, but I will take one of the mock interviews, let's say not like probably next week. probably right after or just before the lockdowns, or if anybody of you would be having any interviews, I can take a mock interview for you 2 or 3 days prior to that. So that still works. But yes, the theoretical aspects and everything, that's probably today is the last session we have. But yes, as part of the job support and as part of the interview support, that would keep on going depending upon the need, individual's need. And for everyone, I would plan a session for a mock interview, which would be quite like how we did today. But yes, that would be a little more of a judgmental type, wherein I would judge you guys depending upon the skills that you have acquired so far, and that might help Tasin specify the priority of interviews for you. But that's not happening very far near far. At least 1 or 2 weeks after that, we can think of that.
Okay, so can you today is the last class, so I just request you. Can you describe a little bit, give us the little bit idea about the question? Was the about your question organization? You make the question is number 2 maybe.
Okay, so what I can understand, you want to know how you would describe whatever you did in your organization, right?
Yeah, this one and your organization, no to organization. So you make the question. I think when you start the class and you write down 3 questions, right? Skills, no to about your organization.
Okay. Okay, so when you have to describe about your
Give a
organization,
little bit idea about this question.
yes, let me just give you a little bit idea. So let's say you
Mama, can I have your phone?
describe about your organization and the roles that you have been into that. So always start up. So don't go into let's say you're working in a telecom, or let's say you are working somebody is working in any retail clients. So I'm not interested into understanding your business initially as a technical interviewer. I would always look for your Hadoop infrastructure. So start with, okay, I've been working as a Hadoop admin. I worked upon Hadoop clusters that were managed by Cloudera and or Hortonworks platform. And we have clusters. We have around X number of nodes. Okay, X number of nodes. We Apart from this, I also have experience on. So let's say I am explaining it to you as you are my interviewer. Okay, so I have also experience of automation of of automation scripts using tools like Ansible, uh, Python, Shell. Okay, so Ansible is one such automation tool that tends to help out in running shell commands over various servers at one go. Then you might increase. Then you might discuss about uh, a little bit into your organization. So what kind of data we are storing? So we are storing. Let's say if you're a bank, we are storing customer data insights over which we have a development team that works on data science workbench, and my role is to take care of the infrastructure, handle production issues, write data jobs, not write data jobs, but configure. I would say on writing is basically a role for the developers. Configure them, something like that. So you can keep on describing about your team your role, what your.
I'm sorry, Sahil. Can you repeat? You said how many?
Mhm. Hello.
Your voice is breaking down. Can you tell me how many numbers of nodes should I
Okay,
say in my cluster?
you can say start off with we have a small
Your
cluster of.
voice is breaking.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, but it's keep breaking.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's breaking.
Okay, probably.
I had kind of similar questions, Sahil.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one you answering, it was like if it was popping in my mind,
Hmm.
like for a couple of days. Like if I want to store like let's say 100 GB of data,
Hmm.
you kind of asked one day this kind of question too in kind of mock interview. 1 GB of data. So how do I decide that how many data node do I need if I want to have a 100 GB of cluster? If I want to store 100 GB of data
Right. So let's say
in
I think
HDFS.
that is from the architectural point, and that's a very apt question. So 100 GB you want to store, right? So you have to think of all the aspects that comes into a file. Samyak, can you explain me that? What all things should I think of?
You should think about how you can divide the data into 128 GB and like in single blocks.
Okay, 128 megabytes of is my block size. What else, Sarah?
The replication factor.
That's what she said, the replication of 30.
All right, 3 is my replication. Apart from that, what do you think, Hassan, Asghar? What else should we think of to decide the number of data nodes?
So 100 into 1000.
Okay, that's part of the calculation. That's fine. Okay, I think this much is fine. Let's say I want to store. Okay, apart from that, you should ask him. Okay, what is my data nodes space? How much will be the space for each data node, right? That's a very that's a basic understanding of the question. So after that, what I'll do, I'll just divide that. So first of all, how many blocks, and also now why do I need this 128? Because I want to know my name node heap as well, right? So what I'll do is 100 GB refers to around into 1024 megabytes. This is my total space that I want to store. I will divide by 128. Let's say comes out to be x. So this x will be my number of blocks that I needs to store, and that will be multiplied by 3. So that comes out to be the 3x will be the number of blocks, or I can say number of objects, and I would multiply each of these objects with 150 kilobytes, sorry, 150 bytes of RAM. So this comes out to be 4550 x bytes of RAM I need for my name node. This comes out to be for the name nodes. And now depending upon 100 GB, I have 3 replications, so that means I need to store 300 GB of data. And depending upon, let's say, each data node is can store up till like y is the uh, y GBs each data node can store. So 300 divided by y, whatever the number comes up, let's say it comes out to be z. This many are the number of data nodes that I need. So not just DNs, you also tends to work upon the name node memory out of it. So whatever space you want to store, you always multiply it by 3 and divide by the each data node space. That will give you the number of data nodes. and you multiply it by 3 divided by 128 will and multiplied by 150 will give you the will give you the total RAM you need at least, and even make it more than this, because you would also be storing you will also be making directories and stuff, so that would also be considered as objects.
How
So
did you do the last step, the data node part, 300 GB divided by Y? How did you did that part? So how did you get the 300?
So I have 100 GB to store, and I have each file that will be, so every smallest file will be converted into 3 replicas, right? Okay, something.
Part, I could understand up to the last line, but I missed out the each data node space.
I also not understand what is the each data node space.
Okay, so you have your AWS servers, right? You have multiple AWS servers, and you tend to attach volumes onto it, right? So when we made 3 node cluster, we had each node was having around 10 GB of space, right? So that was each data node space. So for that, it means like
This question has 100 GB is the data node space.
no, this is the amount of data that you want to store.
Okay.
The amount of data to
store, right?
Okay, and YGB is the, let's say each data node can store only 10 GB of data.
Your rough is just you're assuming it's gonna be 10 GB, or it's always each data node has 10 GB of space.
I'm just assuming it. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, so if a question comes like that, we will just give them like, hey, so my company, for example, uses 10 GB for each data node.
No. So that's not how you would explain it. 10 GB definitely is, production environment. They don't have 10 GB on that. That is a very small amount. Let me give you for my experience. Like I had data nodes with 1 point, not 1 point, I think. Yeah, 2 terabytes of each volume, and I had 8 such volumes with 256 GB RAM per data nodes. So this is like a normal server within any production environment, and this was all on-prem. When I say on-prem, it means on premises. It was not a cloud cluster. Okay, this was not a cloud environment. It was on premises, boxes, server boxes, and we had around 900 such servers in one of the clients, and for a smaller banking client that was just coming up with Hadoop, they were around 16 such data nodes. This is a normal kind of production scenario. Okay, and then when it comes to name node is considered as a critical server, so that had little more. This volume can be less on name nodes, because it don't has to store actual data, it just need to store the metadata. So the place where you want to store your FS image, that was around 2 terabytes, and even this has like 3 different locations where we were trying to store the name node. So there was something like NN1, then I have NN2. So I had like 3 locations where this was being stored. And when it comes to the RAM, that was just double of this, so around 512 GB RAM, and this was also on premises. So
The interview question, as a developer, I also heard the question saying that that's the reason I asked you. I also been asked, so every day-to-day life, how many data, what's the volume of data do you deal with?
Okay.
So I don't know if admin will get the same type of question.
Yes, admins can also get that. on as a developer, what he was probably looking into is like what your code, whatever code that you are writing onto, how much data that deals with. Let's say you are writing a code for customer, uh, what can we say? Let's say you're working for a bank, you're writing for a customer credit card transaction data. So that happens to be somewhere around, let's say, one maximum at around 1 terabyte or 1.5, something like that. It would be not more than this. Okay. When it comes to an admin, he has to deal with all of this. So this is something like 2 terabytes of 8 servers, 16 terabytes of data you need to manage. And also one more thing I wanted to say. I just missed that point from my mind. Okay, I just missed that point, buddy. I think I wanted to discuss about. No, it's not coming up.
Day-to-day basis, how much data?
Right. So how much data on a day-to-day basis will an admin deal with? So every night, most of the time, companies have certain jobs to ingest data. Ingestion jobs might be scheduled that would bring the transactional data. For me, like every night we tend to brought around 2.5 terabytes of data, and we were also managing the purging scenarios because the amount of cluster space is like, although I have a lot of space, but that is still limited. So we'll have to think of a way of deleting some old files. So that comes under purging scenario. So as an admin, every day you would be dealing around 2.5 terabytes of data, and you have scripts that purge, that deletes the old data that also corresponds to the similar amount. So or even more. So yeah, or it will depend upon like how much data you want. It might be a case that you are purging less than what you are getting into the cluster. In that case, you would have a point wherein you will have to plan out to increase your number of data nodes in the coming months and everything. So that depends upon your organization. But yes, when you're going for an interview, you have to explain your experience. You can just write down certain things like this. So something like that, and how much data you're getting, what is the purging scenario you can have. Just make a makeup or a rough kind of idea within your mind, and just confidently explain that. So you can say that okay, I used to get around 2.5 terabytes every day. That was about the customer's transactional data that everybody was generating each day. Okay. Uh, Anything else if I can thought of? Okay, this is done. Default acceptance. I think, guys, when you are going for your interviews, I think just be thorough with your whatever Just make certain kind of an architecture within your own mind of your organization that you dealt with. I know that many of you haven't worked, might have not worked in certain organizations, but yes, you can just confidently make a scenario like this and explain it to your interviewer. That will be fine. It doesn't matter.
Is it safe to say that we worked on AWS, or should we say on-premise?
No, you should say about AWS because you have more experience on AWS. So uh, it's converted by 1/10, I would say. Not 1/10, 200 GB of volumes on AWS, and 8 volumes. I think 8 volumes is little more. 4 volumes, and RAM. So that would fall into which category of your instance? I think instead of less number of servers, RAM, I think we can have 32, and we can have 16 to be a very small cluster servers on AWS. Just look for what is the type, AWS instance type for it, okay, corresponding to it, and data that you're getting each day. What would be a good logical? I think let's check out. Okay, I think 2.5 is for 8, 16 node. That is around 2 GB. What we can say is logical. 100 GB would be logical enough each day that you are managing as an admin, not as a developer. Okay, as a developer, you are still managing a little less. So in this case,
So do we also have to have knowledge about Kinesis and Lambda and S3?
no. Mostly you just need knowledge about EC2, about VPC. So VPC and subnets. Okay, so that means you know about the networking, and you know about the security groups, and volumes, how you increase it, how you decrease it. I think, yeah, you also guys did that. And public IPs, so that means elastic IP. Elastic IP is basically the public IP information. Yes, private IPs you already know. So in terms of AWS EC2, VPC, subnets, security groups, volumes, that much is enough. Little bit more about S3 you can read. So you sometimes what happen is they replace volumes and with S3 buckets. So that is nothing else but just a storage bucket. So S3 is a service that tends to store data into your AWS account, and sometimes people replace volumes with S3, but don't end up saying it in your scenario. You can just say about whatever you have done, just multiply it by 10 times or 20 times, and you can say it, in that sense. But yes, information of this is enough on AWS for Hadoop clusters. That kinesis and everything that relates to when you are just dealing with storing data on AWS applications. But in here we are using a mix of AWS along with Cloudera platform, so that will take care of every other things like DynamoDB and stuff. These are all standalone Amazon applications. You don't need to care about it. Okay, anything else that might come up to your mind? You can, guys, I'm always available on that group. Okay, so we will keep in touch. within the next 2 weeks, I will plan out an interview, mock interview for each one of us. And if any one of you happens to have an interview before that, I can shoot out some questions to you to prepare for before your interview. So probably we can have a 15-20 minutes of a mock interview also planned out for you. And I think a little more topics is what Kareem is asking for. Not sure if we can include that, but we'll talk about it. I think Kerberos AD, little more insight into it is what he's asking for. But I'll have to discuss. Okay, we'll check out on that later. Anything else for now, guys, that you want to discuss? Okay, how much have you covered up, everyone? Classes is covered up, or are you still on the way? Clusters must be ready right now. Everyone's. Is there anyone whose cluster is still not created, or you haven't tried?
So I created cluster, single node cluster. I did not create
Okay,
multi-node cluster.
that's
But
yeah.
I have a little bit problem. I cannot add the cluster and I cannot add the HA.
Okay, just write down your problem on the group. I think somebody can help you out. Many of them have already practiced them a lot of time. If anything still comes up, we can discuss. But for the
Still,
one,
I can create a single node cluster. I have no problem for that. So
that's fine. Just also give a had for like one day at least. Try for 3 node. You can delete those nodes later or the same day, but just give it a try at least once, okay? So that you are through with that HA and everything. And apart from this, for the ones who have completed all these classes and courses and everything, just focus on the interview and your theoretical part and the scenarios part, okay?
So
Troubleshooting.
are we gonna be handed out the resume now so we can like read the resume through? I mean, is it gonna be you or we have to talk? Are you gonna talk to Tasin and Opu about this, or
I think we will have we will.
like how would we study?
I am little not sure. So
Okay.
yeah. So I think Tasin and Oppo would be handling that scenario. But yes, they will contact you.
Okay.
Right now,
So when we the best 4 5 will go to the market. Did you know that?
So it depends upon whenever they get the opportunity. I think they might be having some opportunities for you uh, within the next 2-3 weeks. I am honestly I'm not that sure. I work remotely and mostly of this management is being handled by Tasin and Oppo. So they are the best guys to talk about that. Okay. All right, guys.
So
So
probably next 2 or 3 weeks, right?
I am just not like completely sure, but what I think from the current scenario of lockdown and everything, and market is also there might be opportunities, but I think Tasin and Oppo would be the right persons. But I guess within the next 2 or 3 weeks, because you need at least another 1 week or 2 weeks to go on with all of this and refresh your topics. So they might plan out. I said 2-3 because they might plan out at least after 1 or 2 weeks for your interview. But yes, you just discuss it out with them. Okay. Okay. All right,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Yeah. So let's just. I wish you all happy learning. Keep on learning more, and yes, the next time we'll meet, I will be acting like an interviewer to you because of that mock interview. And any question, anything?
If I have any question, I just follow up the group, right?
Yeah, just post it on the group, and anybody who is available will answer you. I would leave the people in the group to answer first and help troubleshoot. I think that was a good way wherein I think 4 or 5 of you were on a group and discussing a problem. Try to do more such things. Try to include, get into some other person's problem also as well. Okay, so make yourself fluent in that too, troubleshooting too. But yes, for those who have covered up all of this, for the next 1 or 2 weeks, focus on your questions, interview questions. Focus on your theory, scenarios, whatever troubleshooting you have done till now. Write it down into somewhere. So now it is a time to get into that interview mode. Okay, for the one who is still working on the cluster and stuff, you can figure out some time out of your routine and help that guy out so that it will refresh your troubleshooting things as well. Okay, so let's call it off for today. And for the next mock interview, I'll just discuss with the team, and probably we might include some 1 or 2 session. I'm not sure. Tashin is probably asking me to do, but I will have to see if that's possible. But yes, nevertheless, probably somebody else would take that. But from my end, I think I would conclude it today, and might end up on a mock interview one day. All right. Anything else, guys, before we close?
Today
All right,
class will
Sahil,
be.
thank you for teaching us Hadoop. Thank you very much. We just wanted to help. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Yes, Nikhil, tell me.
This will be this video will be uploaded today tomorrow.
Yes, by tomorrow I will upload that.
Okay. Thank you, Sahil.
All right. Goodbye, guys. Then have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.